Alright, we have blue here. We're starting off with a mythic. Abhorrent Oculus, 2 and a white for a 5/5. As an additional cost to cast this spell, exile 6 cards from your graveyard. And it has flying at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep manifest dread. So obviously you need to you have to get a lot of cards into your graveyard. It can also work if you manifest this dread. Because if you manifest this dread, you can just flip it up and then it has this awesome ability. So I think it's a build run. You want self-mill or a lot of ways to manifest dread. You can't just put this into any deck. If you can get it to work, it can be one of the best cards in your deck, but you just need to build around it. And the problem with Manifest Dread is that it's very unlikely you hit specifically this card. But maybe you have both. And if you have both, I think it's a B+ level card. Because when you get this into play, it's a completely absurd card. It's almost like a Coma without the protection, but it's like cheaper. So self-mill or Manifest Dread, and it's absurd. Otherwise, it's unplayable because 6 cards is just so much that you're not gonna be able to get this down in a good fashion, because you may think, yeah, it's like Uro or Croxa Flage, but this one doesn't have a front side, so it just sits and does nothing before you do that. So it's not like Uro where you can just play it, get some value, and then do it. If you can't do it in a reasonable time frame, you're gonna have some games where you can't even cast it, and it's a disaster. But if you have a lot of ways to cheat it, you will get there sometimes, and then it's a B+. Alright, we're starting here with another room. Bottomless Pool or Locker Room. Bottomless Pool is white for bouncing a creature. So sorcery with bouncing a creature is not great. I would not be happy to play that because the sorcery takes away a lot of the good things about it. But Locker Room says that whenever one or more creatures you control combat damage should play draw a card. Which, I mean, you can bounce something and then maybe you have an easier time getting in. I think there is something here, but I'm not that high on this card because I think that both the modes are clunky as hell. Sorcerers with bounce something is not good. 5 mana Coastal Piracy effect is not good. And I think all in all, I'm down on this card. I think it's a D. But I could see it in like a blue deck that has a lot of flyers. Maybe you can play this like a little bit of interaction, and then you will get the card back sometimes. So I think it's a D, mostly a bad card, but there might be a home for it. Another room, Central Elevator, 3 and a blue. Whenever you unlock this room, search the library for a room card that doesn't have the same name as the room you control, reveal it, put it into your hand and shuffle it. If I put it into play, I would be much more excited. Now I think it's just most slowest card ever. It also has Promising Stairs, 2 and a blue. At the beginning of your upkeep surveil 1, you win the game if there are 8 or more different names amongst unlocked drawers or rooms you control. I think this is a D-. I think the Promising Stairs is just not gonna happen. I just think that if you got 8 rooms in play, you either have won the game or lost the game. Because if you have 8 rooms, you got a lot of value from, and then you probably don't even need this effect. And I think 4 mana to search a room. If it put it into play, I would be much more. But now I think it's just a D-, almost an F. I think it's just the most slow card ever, and I think it's too slow. There are some slow cards that are fun and good, but this is more like a Hedron alignment type card, which is just unplayable. So I think D- to F. Clammy Prowler, 3 and a blue for a 2/5. When it attacks another target creature, attack creature can't be blocked this turn. So it kind of works with survival if you have like a blue-white survival deck. Although blue-white seems to be more on the enchantment side. I think this is a mediocre card again. So again, if you attack with this only attacks for 2. It helps something else, but I think it's a D+, pretty mediocre. It is an enchantment though. But I'm not sure that blue-white enchantment wants to have this like kind of attack ability. Creeping Peeper, that's a good name. 1 blue for 2/1, you can pay blue, you can spend this mana only to cast an enchantment spell, unlock a door, turn a permanent face up. So you can like Manifest Dread up a card, or you can cast an enchantment, unlock a door. I think this card is okay. I mean, I almost like these cards better when there are 1/3s for 2, because then they can block and do some stuff, but this one can also maybe trade. I think it's a C-. It's not a great card, but I can see it having a home. You just need to have ways to spend mana. and then it can fill a role. Cursed Windbreaker, 2 and a blue for equipment. When it enters, you manifest dread and you attach this to that creature. And creature has flying equip free. So it's like a Windbreak, 3 mana 2/2 that comes with an equipment, but then you can also either flip up the card or move around the equipment. So it's better than Windbreak, definitely. The question is how much better, because Windbreak is not a good card. Remember how bad Finch Formation was. This is a Windbreak with some extra upside. And it is nice that if you manifest dread something expensive, then you can flip it up and it will immediately have flying. You can also move it around. I think it's about a C. It's not a card that I'm like gonna windmill slam. It doesn't strike me as a super great card, but it's gonna have its moments. And I think it's a playable card. It just doesn't strike me as one of the best uncommons. So I think it's a C. Next up we have the Island Cyclone. This one I like a little bit more than the white one. It's 4 blue for a 5/7 with Vigilance, Island Cyclone 2. So this one is not that it's not that overcasted as the white one was, because a 5/7 Vigilance for 6 just plays attack and defense in a nice way. It doesn't have trample or anything like that, but Island Cyclone. So I like this a little bit more. I think it's a C minus, where the other one was a D plus. This one seems a little better to me, because a 5/7 just is with Vigilance is gonna kind of be what you want sometimes. Not a great card, but I think it's more playable than the other white one. Don't make a sound. 1 and a white for an instant. You cannot target spell under this control pays 2. If they do, you surveil 2. So I'm not a huge fan of these like quench type effects, but I think I know that other people are. They like them more than me. I remember Dazzling Denial wasn't that good. I think it's another C minus, not a great card. And I don't think the surveil 2 makes up when your opponent can pay, but it is nice to have your opponent spend 2 mana and get some surveil, but you're down a card at that point, which is not great. So C minus for that. Duskmourn's Domination. 4 blue for an aura. You control enchanted creature and gets -3 only loses all abilities. Man, they really host the in Bolas's Clutches, which is probably good. Well, it's a lot worse than Bolas's Clutches, but I still think it's going to be a playable card. I think it's more like a C plus, where Bolas's Clutches would like a B. Because a -3 on losing all abilities is kind of huge. You lose all the flying if you that. You lose all the like activated abilities, but you are still getting the creature, but you are down to use a fix. So I think it's a C plus. Enduring Curiosity, you have one of those cards that comes back as an enchantment. And this is 2 blue for a 4/3 flash. And whenever a creature you control is combat type, you play draw a card. And this one flips back. Yeah, awesome card. I think it's slightly worse than the white one, just because the effect draws your cards way less, I think, than the white one. But a 4/3 flash is gonna eat something a lot of the time, and then it might even get an attack. So while the other one was an A minus, I think this is more like a B. I think it's a good card, but there's gonna be spots where this wasn't do that much. But it's not obviously a great card, but more like a B, I think. Alright. Enter the Enigma. Blue mana for a sorcery, target can't be blocked this turn, draw a card. Nice with the survival, but also could be playable otherwise. I think that there was a card called Slip Through Spaces a long time ago now, but that card was fine. It if there's a prowess deck in maybe blue-red, that's nice. So this card does some work. I think it's a C. There will be spots where it's a little awkward. You don't really want to spend the mana. You have other stuff to do. You just want to cycle it, but it costs you mana. Can run into a removal, but I think it's a C. And it's gonna be some spots where it just wins the game, but they are gonna be rare. But I think it can be a role play for sure. I'm also want a reason for it, like survival, prowess, stuff like that. Entity Tracker. It's a rare, 2 and a blue for a 2/3 with flash, and area whenever enchant you control entities, and whenever you full unlock a room, draw a card. Seems like a great card, because if this just draws one card, is a good card, and you can even do more. Unlocking rooms also is nice. Then you get a trigger from when you're casting the room and when you unlock it. So I think it's a B. It's the kind of card that's gonna be awesome. A level, A plus level in some games is more like a C in other games, because you don't have the time to do this. Maybe it's a fast format, who knows? But I think it's a Good card, but the range can be pretty swing. Erratic Apparition, 2 and a blue for 1 for its flying vigilance, so not quite good enough, but it also has Eerie, gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Way less interested in this than some, like an Entity Tracker, because at 1 free flyer for free is not good, but then you get some extra attacks sometimes. And let's say this was a 2/4 flyer for free. It would be good, wouldn't be insane. I think this is a D+, pretty mediocre payoff, I think. Fear of Failed Test. 4 and blue for a 2/7. When it is common time, should play draw that many cards. So how often is that gonna happen? My guess is not often, because when it comes down on turn 5, surely your opponent's gonna have a blocker. And there's a lot of cards that just block this. So then how good is a 2/7 for 5? It's not great, I don't think. I think this card is mostly sort of like a combo piece. If you play this card with like the Enter the Enigma, that's kind of nice. You get to draw 3 cards. I mean, you have to spend 1 card, but I think you want to have some ways to get this through. But mostly I think it's kind of a mediocre card. I think it's a D+, but it can be like a build around C+ in some decks, because in some matchup it's going to be very hard to kill too. In either case, not a great card, I don't think. Fear of Falling, 3 blue for 4/4 flyers as an air elemental, and air elemental these days are about C+, I think. But when it attacks target creature defending play controls, gets -2/-1 and loses flying until end of turn. Okay, that's kind of nice. It also means that your opponent can't really block this card. It's fun if your opponent's creature got reach. This doesn't mean it can't block, but it at the very least shrinks it. I think it's a C+. It's because it's also an enchantment, which is nice. Seems like a card I will rarely cut from an Eerie deck. Fear of Imposters, 1 blue for 3/2 flash. So that's a lot of flash creatures now. I think we've seen 3 or 3 flash creatures so far. Mostly on higher rarities though. But when it enters, counter target spell and its controller manifests. So this card I like way more than the white 1 mana Manifest Dread, because this comes on a 3/2 body. If this was like 1 mana counter a spell and Manifest Dread, I think it would be terrible. But now I think it's a playable card, because you're making up for the fact that your opponent gets a 2/2 with a 3/2. So some amount of the time this will just trade for the Manifest Dread, and then it was like a cancel. But some amount of time you will abuse this, but like maybe you bounce this. This also triggers Eerie. You can blink it maybe, and sometimes you can like bounce the Manifest Dread, and it's just a land. Although your opponent gets to look at 2 cards, but anyway, that will still happen. Sometimes your opponent sees like 2 lands. Anyway, I think it's a C+. I think it's a good card, but I wouldn't be like picking this first pick and going into blue. But I think it's a solid payoff for being blue. Fear of Isolation, 1 blue for a 2/3 flyer, and as soon as you cast a spell, return a permanent you control to its owner's hand. So this is not like the aviary mechanic style card, so it's optional, you have to bounce something. And that will set you back sometimes, but it will also sometimes give you value. You return a card when it comes to the play effect, or you return a land at a spot where you didn't have a land drop, and it even can add mana for you. All in all, I think this card is good. I think that most of the time you can find some use for it, and there's not going to be that many times where the drawback hurts you that badly. So I think it's a C+. And also an enchantment creature, which is nice. C+. It goes down a little bit because sometimes you will get hurt. It's not a great play on turn 2, for example. Flood Pit's Drowner, 1 blue for 2 on Flash Vigilance, another flash card. So much flash. And when it ends, top target creature and opponent controls and puts a stun counter on it, and you can pay 1 blue, shuffle this, and target creature stun counter on it into its owner's libraries. And then when you top deck this to turn off, your opponent's gonna tilt. In any case, it's a good card. It's a 2/1 flash that stuns something, so you can stun something for 2 turns if you cast it during your opponent's turn. The ability is also nice. It means that you can even do tricks that block with this and shuffle in, block another card and then shuffle this in. So you can even get a lot of tempo. It seems like it's a very good defensive card. It can also be good on the offense, but I think mostly it's going to buy you a lot of time on defense. Also, if you got this card, you can't get decked. uh, oh yeah, you can, because well, you can get decked if your opponent's got no creatures in play, because then you have nothing to put a stun counter on. You have to put a stun counter on your opponent's creature. So you can't get decked with this card, because if you got no cards in your library, you cast this stun something, then in your upkeep you shuffle it back. Anyway, that's just me dreaming up scenarios. Anyway, I think the card is a good card. I think it's a B minus. Just seems like a very efficient card. It almost gets better the later in the game you get, but it's not a terrible card to cost like turn 2 on the draw either. And maybe you have some other cards that put stun counters on it, so then later in the game you can like get rid of them for good, or until your opponent draws them again. Anyway, get out. Blue, instant. Choose one. You turn to target creature enchantment spell, or you return one or two target creatures and or enchantments you own to your hand. So you can like re-trigger rooms. You play a room, get some value, bounce it, do it again. That's clunky, but it's mostly blue counter creature enchantments, but which is way worse than Essence Scatter, just because double blue is rough. All in all, I don't think this is a great card. It's a card you can play if you got like 10 islands in your deck or 10 blue sources. It goes up a little bit, but I think never gonna be more than like a C. And most of the time, I think it's a D plus, a kind of a bad card on both ends. But it can do some nice stuff, and every once in a while, you're gonna have a deck where this is like a very good fit. Ghostly Keybearer, 3 and a blue for a 3/3 flyer. So we have seen these 4 mana 3/3 flyers in some sets now, and they're always fine, never great. But when it is combat time, should play unlock a locked door over up to one target room you control. Ooh, that can be a lot of mana. It can be like somewhere around 3 to 6 mana. And a 3/3 flyer for 4 will get through a lot of the time, actually. So I think this card is good. I think in a deck with a lot of rooms, this could even be like a B, because if you like a 4 mana 3/3 flyer isn't the worst card in the world, but when this adds like 5 mana to your mana pool, that's absurd. And some amount of the time, yes, it's not gonna feel like it's worth the mana because the effect on the room is not worth that, but it's gonna do a good effect. And even if this like gives you like 3 mana worth of stats, it's worth it. So I think it's in a deck with a lot of rooms, this could be like a B minus, somewhere around that. And if you don't have that many rooms, it's like a C. Glimmer Burst, 3 and a blue. You draw 2 cards and you create a 1/1 enchantment creature token. I almost want to reverse this and word it like, what if this is a 1/1 that draws 2 cards when it comes into play? It's worse because that card you can bounce and blink, and then you can't do this. But on the flip side, you get an enchantment creature, it gives you stuff for Eerie. It makes your like white uncommon better, the one that cared about glimmers. So 4 mana make a 1/1. That card you can also like shump with. I think this is way better than Divination. I think it's a C plus. I think it's a good card actually. I think that you're gonna really feel good when you get some value from the 1/1. And it's not that hard to get that between like Eerie and maybe Glimmer payoffs, stuff like that. Also, like drawing 2 cards and like shumping like a 5/5. It's like drawing 2 cards game 5 live some amount of it. So I think it's a C plus. It's a good card. We have another ley line here. Let's see if this one is as bad as the white one. 2 blue. It starts in play if you have it in the opening hand. You choose a creature type. Creature control are the chosen type. And the same is true for creature spells you control and creature own in battle. This one is an F. This one I don't have to think too much about. Even if this was always in your opening hand, it wouldn't do enough to be worth it. So this one, though, might be better in construct than the white one. Next, we have one of the sweetest cards in the set, Marina Vendra's Grimoire. 5 and a blue for a legendary artifact. When it enters, if you cast it, draw 5 cards. So no Manifest Dread. I don't even know if Manifest Dread works on artifacts. In any case, 6 mana, draw 5 cards. That's a card I'm interested in. It's like an opportunity that's sorcery speed, but this one leaves an artifact in play that says that you have no maximum hand size, and you don't lose the game for having 0 less life. Okay, we might have some major downside here, though. Or upside. Whenever you gain life, draw that many cards. So it's like Glitch's Mastery. Whenever you lose life, discard that many cards. Then if you have no cards in hand, you lose here. So basically your life total becomes your hand. And then you draw 5 cards. And there is no clause that you skip your draw step, which is of note. And also it has a downside that you have to discard cards if you get hit. So even if you don't get killed, you're gonna have to lose the cards in your hand. Okay, so maybe this card isn't as good as I thought it was. But I think it's this is the kind of card that's also paying you off for drawing other cards. And you could maybe bounce this or sacrifice it. This card is hard to play. If this was just 6 mana, draw 5, I would be giving it like a B. That would be the kind of game card that would just like you want stall, and then just cast this reload, win. This one has a little bit of a extra sauce where sometimes it's a downside that your hand size is your life total. Sometimes it's an upside. If you cast this on 1 life, it's basically all upside because you would have lost anyway. So this is the kind of card you want to cast when you're at low life total. If I'm at 3 life and casting this, the effect is almost assuredly an upside. Because I would have lost the game anyway if I have to discard cards. So why not make my life total that? If I'm at like 15 life, it becomes a little bit awkward because not only am I at a lower life total, and now I also have to discard cards every time I get hit. So this is a very hard card to grade. I think it's a build around B. I want a lot of defensive speed. I want some extra card draw. And I want some life gain if I can do it, because then I can reload with some cards, which makes me have fodder to discard. So and life gain is kind of thing you want anyway in a deck that wants to draw 5 cards for 6 mana. I think it's a build around B, and I will be very happy to try it. I think it's a regular rare on the Mythic, which is nice too. We have a room here, Meat Locker, 2 and a blue. When you unlock this door, tap up to 1 target creature and put 2 stun cards on it. Not worth a card, but it is you have to have the other room do some good things here. Drowned Diner, 3 blue. When you unlock this door, draw 3 cards and discard a card. Alright. 5 mana Sift is not good. 3 mana Stuff Something Down is not good. Can you combine these two to have a good effect? Yeah, I don't know. It just seems too expensive on both ends. You are up a card when it costs the 5 mana version, but 5 mana is a lot, and then you have this like 3 mana keep something off your back. I think this card could be okay, but and it is nice that you get this like, but you're very rarely gonna do both rooms in the same turn. So this one pays you off a lot for having like something that flips a room. Let's say you have the 3 and a blue 3/3 flyer. You cost maybe this one can either lock down or reach creature, you attack, unlock it. That's pretty sick. Anyway, I think this is C-, not a great card. But I could see it being better. That's mostly because I don't really know how to evaluate it. The Mind Skinner. Blue for a 10/1. It can't be blocked, and if a sorcerer control will deal combat damage to an opponent, prevent that damage, and each opponent builds that many cards. So it's fun. This card is better in Limited than in Constructed because we are playing with 40 card decks. But this almost feels like a 5/1 unblockable because this one will kill your opponent in 4 hits, maybe 3 hits actually. Yeah, maybe. So maybe this is like a 7/1 unblockable because you are killing your opponent in 10 hits. If 3 hits. So it's like a 7/1 unblock for blue. If I'm mono blue, I think this card is very good because while it's fragile, it does kill your opponent in 3 turns. It's very rarely going to kill your opponent in 2 turns, but the problem is the mana cost here. If this was 2 and a blue, it would be an absurd card. Because a 2 and a blue for a 7/1 is sick. So yeah, in Constructed, this is way worse because then it's going to be more hits. But in a mono blue deck, it's like a B+ because it's kind of fragile. If this comes down on turn 5, it's way less good, but still fine. I think that in a mono blue deck, it's like B, but I don't think you're going to be mono blue though. And if I have good mana for it, I will also play it. I think it's mostly like a B-, C+ type of card because of the mana. Okay, we have a Mythic room here. Mirror Room, 2 and a blue. When you unlock this door, create a token as a copy of a creature you control except as a reflection. So it's like 3 mana clone your thing, mirror image. It's fine, not great. But it has Fractured Realm, 5 blue blue, another room, the other door. If a triggered ability for a permanent you control triggers, it triggers an additional time. So if you take the 7 mana version first and then do Mirror Room, you get 2 reflections. But that's 10 mana. Yeah, I mean, so 3 mana make a copy of your thing is fine. It depends also if you have some good ways to target. And then with 7 mana, you can, when you're completely running out of stuff to do, you can pay 7 mana for that. But then you may not have anything later. I think this is a C, as weird as it sounds. I don't think it's a great card. I would basically give it the same grade as a mirror image. And that's more like a C if you got some good cards to copy. Weird card. Overlord of the Flood Pits, another mythic 3 blue for 5/3 with impending. So it's another one of those impending cards. So you can pay 3 mana and then it comes back 3 turns. It has flying, but when it ends the attacks, draw 2 cards and discard card. A little less absurd than the white one, but still a great card. This one I think more is like an A-, where the other one was an A+, because 5 mana, 5/3 fly, draw 2 discard card. It's a great card, but it's a little less like the game completely over, like when you're crossing the white one. And this one, I think the impending on this one is way worse than the white one, because having to wait 4 turns and the only thing you get on the front side is like a catalog, that's pretty bad. So I think it's an A-, but a little less absurd than the white one. Paranormal Analyst, 1 before 1/3. Whenever you manifest dread, put a card you put into your graveyard this way into your hand. So every time you manifest dread, you're drawing a card. And the nice thing is that if you manifest dread, see a good creature and a good spell, or even a decent spell, you take the spell in your hand and you manifest the creature. And it's not even like if you see a great creature in a land, it's not like you're that unhappy. You take the creature into your hand if it's like an expensive card, or the other way around. But anyway, if you got a lot of manifest dread, it's a good card. I would like give it a C+, because there's gonna be spots where you're gonna wait a little while to manifest dread, and if this draws you just 1 card, it's not that insane. But I think it's a decent card, because sometimes you are gonna draw more than 1 card. Piranha Fly, 1 blue for 2/1 flyer, intent is tapped. If you're aggressive, it's fine. If you're not aggressive, it's less good, because then you probably don't even want that 2/1 flyer anyway. I think it's a C-, not a great card. But if you're aggressive, you can bump it up to like a C. And if you manifest dread this, you can just flip it up and it does not enter tap. But this is not even the kind of card that you're that excited to manifest dread in either case. Scrubbing Skullcrab, 1 blue for 0/3. And it has Eerie. You target in the mills 2 cards. Yeah. The problem with this card is that if you don't kill your opponent with a mill, it does nothing. So I would much rather have it do something else, like looting or gaining life or stunning something. So I can see it having hope, but it also has a problem. This is self. It's not an Eerie card, so yeah, I don't think this is a good card. I think it's a D+ in a dedicated Eerie deck, because I think it's very hard to mill your opponent out with this, and if you don't mill your opponent out, it's not going to do that. Next up, we have a creeper here. Silent Hall Creeper, 1 before 1/1. It can't be blocked, and when it is common time to play, choose one that hasn't been chosen. You do get 2 counters, draw a card, or it becomes a copper null target creature control. Great card. You're probably just gonna make it a free for the first time, then draw a card, and then copy something that has good stats. You get to keep the counters on top of the stats. You can't draw more than 1 card with this, but yeah, I think it's a B+. It's gonna be awesome, but it is fragile the turn it comes into play. But it's a good card. Stalked Researcher, 1 blue for 3/3 defender, and Eerie it can attack, so it didn't have defender. These cards are mostly kind of mediocre, but this is a kind of card that can also work with like the 6 mana draw 5, because it has defensive speed. So these cards mostly are kind of whatever, you can get them late, and I think it's like a D+. But we'll have a home sometime. This is not an enchantment by itself, so you can't really have the room for too many of these cards. Stay hidden, stay silent. An aura. And when it ends, you tap it and does not untap. And then 6 mana, you can shuffle it and manifest dread. So you wrap a card, you're getting a 2/2 for free. And it's 2 mana, like lock something down. This card seems good. I like a 2 mana lock something down. Most of that costs free. And this one even has the ability of getting you a free 2/2. And it's an aura. I think it's a B-. Seems like a great card, actually. I will be very happy to pick that card highly. Next, we have a Saga. First, and might be the only Saga, I don't know. But we haven't seen too many Sagas. But Saga's trick is eerie, by the way. 2 and a blue, the Tale of Tamio. First is mill 2 cards. If 2 cards share a card type where milled this way, draw a card and repeat this process. And the fourth one chapter is excellent number of target instant sorcery and Tamio planeswalker cards from the graveyard. Copy them, you may cast any number of the copies. So you'll have to spend a mana. So how likely are you to draw a card? Not that likely. Most common is milling 2 lands or 2 creatures. And that's not very likely. And if you don't do that, it does nothing. So I think I'm gonna, at the very least, draw 1 card off the first 3 chapters, unless I'm very unlucky. And maybe 2. But then you get to recast some cards, which also this card helps you do. This card seems like a sweet card, but I don't think it's very good because it's unreliable. You're not going to draw cards too many of the times, and sometimes you probably can't play more than 1 spell of the last chapter. So I think this card is not very good. I think it's clunky. I think it's like a D+. But I could be wrong. It could just be insane. I just don't think you're going to draw a card that often. Anyway, it looks sweet though. Tunnel Surveyor, 2 and a for 2/2. When it enters, you get a 1/1 Glimmer. Okay, it seems like a fine card. This card's either great or fine. I think it's a C+ though. At 3 mana for a 2/2 plus 1 or 1 is an enchantment. Seems like a C+ to me. It does not have any additional things though, like the white card from Mercy of Color Manor or the red card from Outlaws of Thunder Junction or Preening Champion. But Twist Reality. Choose 1 blue, counter target spell or manifest dread. Both are kind of clunky, but at the very least it's a little flexible because it seems like the kind of card you will play if you got the Mythic, the 2 and a blue Mythic. You probably want to play this card. It seems like a C- though, kind of mediocre. But it is nice that you have a counter spell that does something. It's just that both sides of this card are mediocre. Unable to Scream. Is that from the Matrix? It's a 1 blue mana aura. It loses all of its becomes an 0/2. And you can't be turned face up. So if you put this card on the Manifest Dread, you can't be turned face up. Which doesn't even matter that much, because if your opponent turns it face up, it still would only be a 1/2, right? Anyway, seems like a little weird. It seems kind of mediocre though. It's like a Witness Protection. It's a little better because I rather my opponent have an 0/2 than a 1/1. But it seems like a C. Seems like a card you will play, especially in an eerie deck. Alright, we got another room here. Underwater Tunnel. Blue mana. When you unlock the store, Surveil 2. Okay, that's not worth a card. Slimy Aquarium. 3 in a blue. When you unlock this door, Manifest Dread, then put the +1/+1 counter on that creature. So it becomes a 3/3 that you can then maybe turn face up. This one seems a little better than the other rooms because here you have a 4 mana 3/3 that you will eventually get to Surveil 2. And it has the bonuses of being able to get flipped up. And the nice thing also, you can Surveil first and then Manifest Dread. And then you can set it up so you got a good creature to manifest. It seems like a C, though not a great card, but it's a card I can play. It seems a little more playable than the other blue rooms. Unnerving Grasp. 2 and a blue, return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, Manifest Dread. Wow, this card is great though, because this is the way I want Manifest Dread to be. This is basically a Mana War. It's even better than Mana War because you get to maybe flip it up. You can return other permanents. The only downside against Mana War is that you can't blink it for good value. Although if you blink a Manifest Dread card, it becomes interesting. Anyway, I think this is a B minus. I think it's a good card. Unwilling Vessel, 2 blue for 3/2 vigilance. Eerie, it gets a possession counters, and when it dies, you get an XX blue flyer, where X is the number of counters on it. So if you can trigger this once, this is a 3/2 that dies into a 1/1 flyer. That's okay. If you can do it more, it's even better. This one is a little less. I don't think this is a great card. I think it's kind of slow. But it can have some room. I just think that it's not gonna be that good. This looks way worse than some of the other payoffs. I think it's a C. Last blue card, Vanish from Sight. 3 blue. Target non-land permanent only puts on the top and bottom of the library, surveil 1. So it's like these usual cards, but it's tacked on surveil 1. I think it's gonna be good. These types of cards are usually pretty good. And surveil 1 is nice. So I think it's a C plus actually. I think it's pretty good.